Good morning. We are live on the Falcons Podcast. It is Monday morning, March 18th, a beautiful, almost spring day in the Southeast. I'm here in Atlanta. My name is Scott Kennedy. My co-host, Nick Kendell, will be joining us shortly. He's got daddy duty going on, and he's feeding the baby. That's not a euphemism. That's actually what is going on. So, welcome in, everybody. We go live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on these channels. We'll say hello to some folks, but I kind of want to set up the next 30 minutes or so for you. We want to talk about the ESPN article from Dan Graziano. It's on ESPN Plus. He started talking about today overreactions to free agency. And the question they asked was, does a Kirk Cousins signing make the Atlanta Falcons a Super Bowl contender? He laid out the case, what happened, and then he says, is this an overreaction or not an overreaction? We'll get into that. Lots of question about the tampering news in here. About the questions surrounding that. We'll talk about that a little bit. I don't have a ton of information on that, just past historical events, et cetera, and what might, worst case scenario type things. We'll probably talk a little bit of draft and some depth charts, because when we talk about are the Falcons a contender, a Super Bowl contender, let's take a look. Where are the holes in this team? Offense. On paper, is it a championship caliber offense? On paper, yes, it looks to be that way. It could be a team that could be, the offense is good enough to win a lot of games, for sure. Where's the defense? The defense now becomes a much bigger question. With the investments that the Falcons have put into the offensive side of the ball, including the offensive line, including top picks at running back and pass catchers, tight end, receiver, $100 million guaranteed in 2 years. Kirk Cousins, yes, they've put money into what should be a championship caliber offense. Can it be that? We'll see. There's a lot of guys who have to take that next step. A lot of young players on offense that have to take that next step. So I want to say hello to some folks that have come in nice and early before we get going. In pursuit of excellence, feeling like a Falcons fan. He says, I really hate when we're on the national radar. It hasn't gone well, has it? I used to joke. In 1998, I was 25 years old, and I said, the lifelong ambition so far of an Atlanta Falcons fan is to just go through a season without being embarrassed to say I'm an Atlanta Falcons fan. Now, remember, I grew up in the 80s, and if you have any questions about the Atlanta Falcons in the 80s, if you're not that old, just type in Atlanta Falcons reference and go to the Pro Football Reference, and you'll see the list of records by year. You'll know why it was embarrassing to be an Atlanta Falcons fan. But hey, we loved them. So in 1998, we made it all the way 364 days, right up until Eugene Robinson gets arrested for solicitation I think it was in Miami. The night before the Super Bowl, our Man of the Year candidate. Thank you. So it hasn't always gone well, has it, when you're on the national radar? We get it. D'Angelo Pouncey says, yes, one word, yes, this team is a Super Bowl contender. And I'll let Nick answer, but I know he's got some thoughts on this, specifically being in the NFC. Victor Atkins, good to see you. Says, good morning, Scott, Nick, and fam. That's all, y'all. Wide receiver or defense in round 1 and 2? Yes. Wide receiver or defense in round 1 or 2. I think that's fairly logical. The other sneaky need in here is offensive tackle. If you decide you want to get and again, Matthew Bergeron might be one of the long-term replacements at offensive tackle. He started at guard, but he can play tackle, absolutely. So that could be one of the answers also. Then you can go a cheaper option at guard. Usually you can get starting caliber guards 2nd and 3rd round and beyond while your offensive tackles. But a sneaky need on this team, especially if Caleb McGarry is deemed a liability in the passing game that Zach Robinson wants to run, is offensive tackle, and it is a deep class at offensive tackle. And Mike Swanker says, is there any way you could do a mock draft without a first pick? We could just skip it or add one and ignore it, but I don't think it will come to that. So, and I especially don't think it'll come to that this year. If the Falcons, the worst case scenario, and it goes back to the Miami Dolphins they lost a 1st round pick, and their owner was fined like $1.5 million and suspended for 6 games for tampering with Sean Payton and Tom Brady. And it was part of the Brian Flores racial discrimination lawsuit. Those are 1, 2, 3 strikes. And we're going to, they got pretty harsh penalties. Arthur Blank, the Atlanta Falcons, I mean, one, we haven't been relevant enough down in Atlanta to warrant that type of thing. But those are three things that I think they ended up hitting them on. It was two players and a racial discrimination lawsuit, which had some legs from Brian Flores. So I don't think that's going to happen. But, as people have said, when we turn Falcon into a verb around here, you get it. You understand that. Expect the worst. Yes. Are they doing okay, or are they going to Falcon things up? Yeah, I know. I get it, y'all. Dave Glassman, good to see you. Good morning. Victor Belletti, good morning. He says, what is your vision on the best prospect available / need debate? I think wide receivers are more talented, but Turner / Verse could cause more impact because of the edge need. Victor, as usual, it's not the binary discussions that are so prevalent these days. It's black and white. No, it's somewhere in the middle. The best drafts, the best player is if you can match the best prospect available with a need. Now, remember, Nick always says, and I like this thought, I always think of it in mathematical terms of watching Madden, but in tiers. I've got tiers of prospect, TIERS, not tears like, I'm crying tears because of some of the Falcons' past draft choices, but tiers of prospects. I've got tier 1. I've got 5 guys in this group. I'd be happy with any one of these. I see all these 5 guys fairly equally. I'm going to select the one of these guys that best fits a need for my team. Now, if I'm going down the line and I see a clear delineation between this guy's a 95 on my Madden rating and this guy's a 90, okay, well, I'm going to take the 95 if it's a premium position, or if I deem him a game changer like they did with tight end Kyle Pitts, who wasn't necessarily a premium position. So my thoughts on this is, if it's close, and it will be, obviously, I get annoyed at that. It's like, oh, the best player available. Well, really? He was the best player? Let's grade with hindsight. No, odds are you're not drafting the best player, because probability says the 250 guys that go after number 8, somebody in there is going to be a better player. So I've changed that to best prospect available. And even that is still subjective, but at least it puts in the idea that I don't know he's the best player, that there's still some doubt in there. If it's close, I want to fit a need, and I want to go premium position for the cost control benefits on the salary cap. If it's close, edge is the biggest need. Now, I looked at Jordan Reed of ESPN just updated his top 50 list on ESPN. He has Dallas Turner at 10. He has Jared Verse at 12. Now, again, those are linear rankings, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And sometimes there's a big gap between 5 and 6, 6 and 7, and there's a drop off. So you're not quite sure on that. But just on that list, is the number 10 prospect overall enough? Is that close enough for you that I would take him over a wide receiver I might like just a little bit more? Yeah, I would right now. Now, I don't know their grading scales, and I might say no. And I know when Nick gets here, he might answer this differently. He says, I see Malik Neighbors and Robin Dunze as significantly better prospects than Dallas Turner. Okay, I'm listening. But for me on that debate, I need edge. I need edge, and if it's close, I'm going edge. If it's not close, then I'm going with the better prospect in a premium position. I don't want to go guard here. I want to go tight end again. I don't want to go running back like the Falcons have gone in the past. 1, those 2 positions are already locked. 2, I could probably be talked into Brock Bowers, though. I just think it's too similar to what you have in Kyle Pitts, and there's not enough spots for those guys to go around with a pass-catching, big-bodied tight end. Great question, though, Victor. Want to say good morning to Mark Schrader over in Texas with the coffee. Good morning, Mark. I'll drink to that. Drinking my Lion coffee. Patrick keeps us well stocked here and sends us stuff from Hawaii. So check out lioncoffee.com. It's a big help to us, keeping us well caffeinated. Red Swarm says, good morning, Scott, Nick, and everyone in the chat. Hope you all have a magnificent Monday. To you as well. Corey says it's weird hearing a team's name on TV so much, but I kind of like it. Yeah, not too bad. My Swanker says, how much money do the Falcons have left to spend? Not much. So I started looking at Who are some of the defensive backs the Falcons could be in on? Let me see where they are on available salary cap space. And it says $4 million. So basically, this team is full other than the draft. That's a little bit scary. So let's get into the question again. Where are the holes on this team? If you go across the offensive side of the ball, you're fairly well set. Could you use more of a wide receiver too? Yeah, probably. But even a wide receiver too, let's say you did draft Rome Odunze or Malik Neighbors as wide receiver too. They're probably on most teams that would take a receiver in that spot. They're probably the number one receiver on that team. Where does a player like that come in on this team? With Kyle Pitts, with Bijan Robinson, with Drake London in there, where does a Rome Odunze come in right now? Third option, fourth option, second option? So I think there's a debate to be had about where you come in. But I start looking at the defensive side of the ball. There's some holes there. I want to welcome in a co-host. Let him take a big slug of coffee. He saw me coming in and saying, I almost got you mid-gulp, like a good server that I never was. The question here, and was on the money, and we're talking the theme of the show. And actually, I want to hit this one here real quick. Roderick has a good question. Has anyone heard from Mike Harvey from last week, who said he was headed to the hospital he was having numbness in his face? We haven't heard from Mike. Hopefully Mike's doing okay. Mike, we're thinking about you. Not just everybody in the chat. So hope you're doing okay. But the question was from Dan Graziano, the overreaction to things. Let's overreact to the first week of free agency. Does the Kirk Cousins signing make the Atlanta Falcons a Super Bowl contender, Nick? And I know you've had some thoughts on this because I've heard you say them, but let's get them out there in the open as the main topic today. What do you think?
I think you're probably one of the top 10 teams in the NFL in terms of Super Bowl odds, and that would make you borderline between that contender and pretender line. But with the NFC pathway, the way I see it, there's just not many gauntlets. So I think that the pathway is open. The division is open. You have a chance at a home playoff game because of that. And the NFC North might cannibalize itself. I don't really think the NFC West is going to be very good. I don't think the NFC East is very good. We know the NFC South isn't very good. So I think you are contenders in that sense, but you're not one of the top 3 teams in the NFL. But sometimes when the top 3 teams don't win it, I mean, it just, you get in, you have a chance.
When I think of contenders, I even think just, are you a contender to make the game? Not necessarily. So are you contender, a Super Bowl contender? In my mind, are you a contender to be in the Super Bowl? Not necessarily win it, but, and if you're in it, you've got a chance to win it. You never know what's going to happen. But, again, my initial reaction to that is no, I don't. They'll come in and say, if this is a waste of time and money, if Kirk Cousins can't win you a Super Bowl, why are you even making this move? Like, why have you even been a Falcons fan for the last 60 years or however long? They've never won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Progress. Does this move make the team better? Yes. Yeah. Should the Falcons be better? When we look at wins and over under, what was it, 8.5 last year? It's going up. The perception of this team is better. I would think it goes up at least a full game because they only won 7 last year. They came in under. It at least goes up to 9.5, maybe even to 10.5 with the Kirk Cousins signing and the new staff coming in, Nick.
Yep. Yeah, you guys are going to have I would probably set you at 10.5, 11.5 right now, but I just don't really think the NFC South is that great. You're going to have a third place schedule. Third place schedule as well, which is going to make a difference for you guys, considering you probably were a second place schedule talented team last season outside of quarterback. So yeah, I think you got a heck of a chance to make a run. And right now, I want to say if the rest of the offseason goes, of course. But I think if it was the line was set at 10.5, I might hit the over.
Dan Graziano says that this is an overreaction, and I agree with him. If you were to make that statement, the Atlanta Falcons are a Super Bowl contender after the signing of Kirk Cousins. I would consider that statement to be an overreaction to the signing, and he points to the youth of the skill players on how there's been flashes, but there hasn't been consistency there that you need in order to really make a good run, a good run on it. And frankly, that's one of the reasons why you lose to 3 of the 4 teams or however many it was that are drafting in the top 4, top 5 this year. Those inconsistencies. And his verdict on this was, I like Atlanta to be improved with Cousins under center, but I'm not putting them in a class with the 49ers, Lions, Packers, Rams, Eagles, and Cowboys. What's missing in there? That's 6 teams. What was missing in that group of 6?
Lions? Did you say the
No,
Lions?
Lions. What was missing, Nick, since, that's a tough question, we're not looking at it, is a team from the NFC South.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
There was no team from the NFC South in there. So does this move make the Atlanta Falcons favorites in the NFC South? I think so.
Yes. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think that, I don't know. I think last season's Buccaneers team was a little bit fluky getting in there. I maybe it's partly me believing the overall sample size with Baker Mayfield. They lost their offensive coordinator as well that was doing good things there. It's now with Carolina, Canales. Yeah, I think the Falcons surely are the favorite in the NFC right now. You have a lot of work to do still on the defensive side of the ball at some of the skill positions, but I think that offense is going to be pretty steady and pretty dependable. I think we know what we're going to get from them, at least as far as a floor goes.
Yeah, ask yourself, that it was going down to the wire again last year anyway. Tampa improved throughout the season. That, hey, what a concept. But did they get better and significantly better in the offseason? I think everybody can admit the Falcons look significantly better. Now, what happens on the field, we'll see. But everybody is going to come in with the Atlanta Falcons being better. Now they have to go out and prove it. But safety Jordan Whitehead, defensive tackle Greg Gaines, running back Chase Edmonds, those are actually, he was a re-sign, and so was Greg Gaines. So the only person they've really added is Jordan Whitehead to the team. Otherwise, we're going to keep it going. And they were kind of considered in a rebuilding year last year. And they're not building with much this year. So let's look at the Saints. Have the Saints. We talk about, the salary cap is a myth. Falcons fans know that's not true. Now let's take a look at the Saints, who skirt it all the time. They have, best I can tell, they haven't signed a free agent. They lost Malcolm Roach, a reserve defensive lineman, to the Broncos. Jameis Winston, Lonnie Johnson. I'm looking at this right. They haven't signed anybody. So have the Saints gotten significantly better?
Probably not. I mean, you have Derek Carr there again, but it was really cantankerous seemingly there last season. So I don't know if they're much better. I mean, I expect the Panthers to be better, but the NFC South is, shocking things happen. Of course, Dennis Allen is on thin ice. There's a lot of talk that he might even be fired last season. It was kind of a shock that he was back. So, the door is wide freaking open in the NFC South. And with that, with the home playoff game, with the NFC, who are the big bad wolves of the NFC right now? 49ers might be losing Ayuk or Debo. They lost Eric Armstead. Can you get another Brock Purdy run? I don't know. I don't think he's that kind of guy. Cowboys seem like they're kind of in a weird spot as well with Dak. The Eagles, out here trading for Kenny Pickett. It's really, it might just be the NFC South teams that I'm most interested in right now, and the Packers and the Lions. After that, of course, you got to respect the Niners. But, it is open. It is not hurdle after hurdle. AFC, Houston, CJ Stroud. NFC, you got Miami speed. Of course, Josh Allen. The AFC North, you got Baltimore, Cincinnati, AFC West, of course, Jim Harbaugh with Herbert now, Patrick Mahomes. It's night and day different, especially at the quarterback position right now in the two conferences.
And Carolina should be improved because they have nowhere to go but up. They've spent a lot of money. You know where they've put all that money? Guard. They've put it into offensive guards. They've got 53 with 26 guaranteed to Damian Lewis at guard, and then Robert Hunt, $100 million contract. Again, it's guaranteed. Total guaranteed is $63 million. Here's another one of those Kirk Cousins is too expensive moments for everybody that I like to point out. Robert Hunt's cap number in 2024 is 21.7. Let's call it 22. $22 million at guard. Kirk Cousins is $25 million. Offensive guard. Kirk Cousins is too expensive. Carolina Panthers offensive guard Robert Hunt. I've already forgotten his name.
Yeah,
Robert Hunt. has virtually the same cap number as quarterback Kirk Cousins and the Atlanta Falcons. Now, again, I will listen. Kirk Cousins is older, could be declining coming off an injury. Okay, cost isn't the issue on this. He did not cost too much. Something to think about there. John Harrell, good morning. Good morning. Good to see you. Appreciate you coming in and the support as always. And Edward Brown with a super. He has a question. We jump to those as fast as we can. Thank you for supporting the show. He says, what was Calais Campbell's contract last year? And has he given any indication that he would like to play one more year? I think it's still on the table. He hasn't come out and said, no, I don't want to. I think it was like 7. It wasn't that much. I mean, it wasn't nothing, but it was a 1-year deal. And I have to scroll a good ways down to find him. Campbell. It was 7. So his he had I think a $500,000 signing bonus or something, and then his cap hit was 7.5 total. So $3 million signing bonus, set 400. It was miscellaneous for 500,000. So I don't know what that was, but $7.5 million. It's starting to get a little tough to bring guys back to add free agents. You can still do it, and there will be some moves to be made. If you look at Taylor Heineke, a restructure where you take somebody's base salary and extend them, pay it out as a part of an extension. But, where I start worrying about this team a little bit is on the defensive side of the ball, Nick. You still need that pass rusher. You're going in, the front 3/4 still looks pretty good. Zach Harrison is slated to replace Calais Campbell. Zach was playing really well at the end of last year. If you've got him and Taquan Graham in a rotation, that's not bad. And then where I start getting a little nervous, obviously, is edge rusher. You've got Ebiketie and Lorenzo Carter. I thought Lorenzo was a free agent too. Mm-hmm. That are someone to you can upgrade there. Feel good about inside linebacker. DeMarco Hellams is penciled in as a starter right now, so is Richie Grant. You're going to need an upgrade at safety. And then at cornerback, you've got Mike Hughes and Clark Phillips opposite A.J. Terrell. Now, I like Clark Phillips. Mike Hughes is kind of iffy to me, but I'd like to see Clark Phillips in the slot. And you need another cornerback too. Cornerback is a need. Cornerback 2 is a need for this team, Nick.
Yeah. Cornerback 2, of course, and defensive line. So you definitely have options there. I still maintain that I don't know if I absolutely adore any of the defensive players enough where it's like if this guy's there at 8, you take him no matter what. Honestly, to God, I think there are 8 players that should go in the top 8, and none of them are defensive players. So that puts you in a prime spot to maybe trade back just slightly. I know a lot of fans in here are we're pretty upset with the Cousins because the long-term perspective. Well, maybe the move is trade back and you accumulate assets and you keep giving yourself chances down the road to be aggressive and go get that quarterback. So that could mean a trade back and getting 2025, 2026 assets to start, accumulating those, that war chest and move back from there. But right now, Scott, I mean, I have a top 8, and I think if you didn't take any of those guys, it might make sense to move back. You have the 4 quarterbacks, the 3 wide receivers, and Joe Alt. I think all of them deserve to be taken before a Kenyon Mitchell, a Terrion Arnold, a Jared Verse, a Dallas Turner. So would somebody want to maybe make a slight trade up? Hello, Jets. Hello there. Probably not the Vikings. Maybe whoever trades back with the Vikings at 11 might want to move back up, kind of like Miami did a few years ago. Remember where Miami moved down to 12 and then they moved back up to 6? To go get Jalen Waddle. Maybe something like that's on the table for the Falcons. So
they went to go get Jamar Chase.
Yeah. Yep. I remember.
They went to go get Jamar Chase, and Cincinnati kind of crossed everybody up when they did not take Penei Sewell. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, but they did okay with Jalen Waddle. They wanted Jamar Chase.
Yeah.
And they paid a lot to go in and get that one. Tony Bradley says, good morning. The Falcons finished with free agency. Justin Simmons would be a game changer for our defense opposite Bates. Not finished. There will be more signings, and there's got to be some cap maneuvering done. But if you look at available cap space right now on Spot Rack, the Falcons come in 31st. They're not 50 million under like we've seen them before, but they come in 31st right now. So they'd have to get creative. There are some moves that can be made to clear up some cap space, but right now, it looks like cheap veterans, I don't know that Justin Simmons will be a cheap veteran. I think he'll be cheaper. I think he was on 18 million coming into the year when he got cut. I still think he's between 7 and 9 when he re-signs somewhere. That might be a little expensive for the Falcons. They might go, again, middle round draft pick. I drafted 2 Georgia safeties in our mock last week because I screwed it up, Nick. I forgot I drafted Bullard and then drafted Tyke Smith again, like in the 5th, doing it by myself. So Simmons would be great. Right now, it feels like a little bit of a long shot, y'all, to get one of those guys. And Dave brings up a good reminder that Rich McKay is on the competition committee and is Arthur Blank's right-hand man as far as this goes with the Atlanta Falcons and the tampering. So good point, Dave. Jeff Holton says the first pick could also be a corner. Yeah, it could be.
Absolutely.
You move down. It's a big need. That's where I have. And Nick, maybe it's because I don't know the guys nearly as well when it comes to like non-Senior Bowl guys or non-top of the draft guys, but day 2 corners, I don't see them. I don't know them though. When we go through these drafts, I have the hardest time picking out a corner I like in day 2, as opposed to wide receivers are there all the time. Edge defense for me, I have much harder time on day 2 than offense.
Yeah. There's going to be cornerbacks available still. And again, if you trade back, you could get yourself the ability to move back for a first round edge and move back up for a first round corner, or vice versa. We see Eric Parker come in with Leatu Latu. I think Chop Robinson is right in that conversation too for that. I mean, he's the twitchiest, probably most classic speed rusher in this class. Maybe he fits the wide 9 alignment, and he's going to be great there. I think the Penn State Pro Day happened last week, and Chop Robinson's 3-cone would have been the best of like the last 2 years or something for an edge rusher. So he's super explosive too. So it doesn't have to necessarily be at 8. I'm still of the opinion it doesn't necessarily have to be defense, but if it is defense, you might be best moving back slightly. Takes 2 to tango. I know that, add that asterisk there, that qualifier, but you can get a cornerback and an edge rusher in the top 30 if you move back.
Yeah, and Trey Smooth says the same thing. Leatu on this is a good one. Robbie Red says, "Hey Scott, I was watching a movie with Ed Helms yesterday, and I genuinely thought it was you. First time I've heard that one. The one that I see, how normally you don't see it in yourself. People say, "Oh, you look like," and I'm like, "Oh, I don't see that." The one that made me look was my high school graduation picture. Looks like the promo picture of Matt Damon on Good Will Hunting. It's like spot on. Like, whoa." That one's a little freaky. I see that one. But I haven't heard Ed Helms before. My hair is getting darker. See, it used to be like towhead white is one of the things. Let's see. I saw another super coming in. This feels like a new super coming in. So welcome. Appreciate it. Devron Beard comes in. He says, dream scenario is the Vikings jump for our pick for J.J. McCarthy. The Vikings are drafting 11. Yes, it is. I like that one. We get possible both of there, or at least one plus a late, and we draft Latu. I think he's the biggest sleeper in the draft. I think you could go, if you go back to 11 and you start a bidding war with, I don't think the Raiders are out of the quarterback market for sure.
No, by any means.
Denver Broncos are in the quarterback market. The Vikings are in the quarterback market. Vikings might be big game hunting. They might be trying to move up higher than 8. We'll see. I think at 11, you should have 2 of the 3 first-round edge rushers available, Nick.
Yeah, probably. I mean, it could be something where you never know with the Jets, right? They always do crazy things. And also there's been a lot of talk of the Bears potentially doing that. So there's a chance that happens. So you have to multiple of the edges and the cornerback available enough to make that move still. So I think that's possible. And I don't think the Vikings are trading up to 8, Scott. I think they're moving up higher than that. I think it's a 3-4-5 conversation for the Vikings right now. Giants are also another landmine there for the quarterback spot. So you're going to have a chance. As far as Latu, I like Latu a lot. I think he's going to come in and be a very valuable edge rusher out of the gate. I do worry that his ability to stop the run and set the edge are pretty limited. He tested better than I thought he would, so give him credit there. Maybe there's a little bit more upside with the ability to set the edge, but I didn't see it so much at UCLA. I saw a technician who was not an amazing athlete or a very overall physical player, which to me, designated pass rusher year 1, and there's value still there with that. Don't get me wrong, and probably somebody more in the pick 15 to 25 range rather than a top 15 pick.
So the 3 edge rushers that we speak of, Jared Verse, Florida State, Dallas Turner, Alabama, and
I'd add a 4th one though. I think
Laiatu
Chop Robinson's there.
Where in the top 15, top 20, who's sneaking in there? You think Chop?
I think Chop's got a chance just because he is that explosive. Where his size, I think it's more likely he goes in like the 20 to 30 range, but I think there's a pretty clear drop off after that, and I wouldn't be shocked at all if some teams have Chop Robinson higher than Laiatu on their boards.
Corey Ellison says, I think if you're a playoff team, you're a Super Bowl contender. Normally, I would agree with that to a certain extent. Like I would lean towards agreeing. Obviously, again, the binary discussions we have on here. The NFC South has been an exception for me the last couple of years. The Falcons have been in the playoff race till week 17 for the last several years. Last 2 years, they weren't Super Bowl contenders. They were a first round out in an ugly fashion. No doubt, just watching them play. They weren't good enough to beat anybody in the playoffs, even if they backdoored their way in with an 8-9 record in the NFC South. The winner of the NFC South this year is probably going to need to win 11 games. They're going to be a much better team. The division was super strong in the 2010s, and it has dropped off. Now it's time to cycle back through and improve for sure. Tony Bradley has a question. Got a couple more here. I see 3 in a row I want to hit on before we get out of here. Unless you got a burning desire, drop a super and we'll stick around a little bit longer. Tony says, are the Falcons really keeping Heinicke as a backup? We could save $7 million by cutting him, and we could get a cheaper backup vet or draft the future. Could use that money to add to the defense. And this is one of the moves I allude to that says you could get $7 million in savings, put that to Justin Simmons, and you exchange your backup quarterback for a Pro Bowl safety. Okay, that sounds pretty good. So these 2 things, I could give you yeses on both of these. Yes, they could keep Heinicke as their backup. Yes, you could save a lot of money because you could do a new deal for him. No, I don't think Taylor Heinicke is back on a $9 million cap hit.
Yeah, I agree with all those things. I think that you could see Heinicke back still, especially now that Ritter's been moved. You might like somebody else out there still, right? This regime has no allegiance to him, but he's a fine backup for what you guys are. So hopefully you can get him back for cheaper. If not, there's going to be other quarterbacks available. There still are other quarterbacks available that might make some sense.
Keith says it's a great question. Scott Nick, good morning, Keith. He says, which pickup is more influential on the offense, Zach Robinson or Kirk Cousins?
It's definitely Kirk Cousins. I mean, I guess you can make a roundabout argument that Kirk Cousins even comes to Atlanta because of Zach Robinson and the fit there. Maybe they don't pursue Cousins if it's not Zach Robinson. So a little chicken and the egg there. But as far as what they're going to do on offense, what the offense looks like, I mean, it's a players' league. Coaches can only take you so far. In the end, it's about the guys on the field. So I'd say Kirk Cousins, unless you want to argue that Cousins wouldn't be here without Robinson being here first.
Yeah, I think you try and say, all right, you don't change your quarterback, but you change your offensive coordinator. And Zach Robinson, do you get better? Yeah, probably. Arthur Smith holds on to his job, but you sign Kirk Cousins. Are you better now than if you just got Zach Robinson instead? Probably. Yeah, you're probably better with Arthur Smith and Kirk Cousins than you are with Zach Robinson and Desmond Ridder. So Kirk Cousins on this one. Andrew Mayer, he says, Eagles fan here, but I think the Falcons can definitely compete for the NFC this year. Compare them to the Lions, for example. Not so far removed from them or Philly, in my opinion. Yeah, again, would I put them as favored against either of those 2 teams? No, but strange things happen. Philly dropped off at the end of last year. Detroit looks really good. Detroit might be the favorite in the NFC coming in right now. So they look really good for sure. And then one final thing I want to hit on real quick. Brian Friedman says it's going to take some time for this offense to look right. Let's slow the roll on winning a division title this coming season, maybe in 25 or in 26. No, Brian, no. This division can be had. It's not like you're in the NFC East and you're the Commanders and you had a real splash in free agency, but you're competing with the Cowboys and the Eagles for the division title. You're not even competing with the Rams, Seahawks, and 49ers. No offense to the Buccaneers. We've got Bucs fans in this chat, but the Buccaneers have won it 3 straight years. I don't know that they've got more than a game over 500 with 3 straight divisional titles. 10 wins this division the last 3 years. You spend $100 million on a quarterback for 2 years because you think you can get to 10 wins. No, the expectations for this team should be 10 wins minimum. If that doesn't win the division, so be it. Let's say the Bucs go on a heater and they get 12, fine. But 10 wins, and if that wins the division, great. But my expectations for this team, or I will consider this a failure is a wrong word, but I will be disappointed in this team if they don't win 10 wins. Get 10 wins.
Yeah. I do think that it's a get up and go right now. Offense might take a little bit of time to look right, maybe 4 or 6 weeks there's just enough newness there that it might take some time, but the ceiling of the division is still pretty low that I think I would still be going for it. And just look at the contract that you set up with Kirk Cousins. You're gearing up to go for it the next 3 years, and this starts right now. So I don't think maybe 25, 26. I think you need to not hit the ground running necessarily, but, be competent, signs of greatness early on. And then hopefully, you hit late October, the weather starts changing, I guess maybe not in Atlanta and the Dome, but, real football weather. And then you can start to get going there. But that's my expectation. I think of the Broncos in 2012. Now I know it's not Peyton Manning, but you have Peyton coming off a crazy injury in the first 5.5 weeks of the first season of Peyton Manning in Denver. It looked sloppy. Looked like Denver maybe, weren't going to get a very good Peyton Manning. And then it clicked. It clicked for the offense. They got going. So I'd give them 4, 6, 7 weeks, and then hopefully you find a baseline there with the offense. But maybe it is wishful thinking, Brian. I don't blame you for being I believe it. I'll believe it when I see it kind of person.
Dave and company, good to see you. He says, how washed are J.C. Jackson, Xavier Howard, or Stephon Gilmore? I think each and every one of them would be an improvement over Mike Hughes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The issue is that a lot of them are older. I think Gilmore would make some sense there. I think he played well last season overall. J.C. Jackson and Xavier Howard, not so much. I think I would not be super interested in any of those guys unless they came in close to vet minimum for 1 year, but I would not depend on them by any means. That's just kind of a lottery ticket.
One final thought, and we're going to get out of here. It was Ryan Adonis. Good to see you. He says, it's win now. We aren't messing around with Arthur Smith anymore. And Brian says, we've said this all the time. Said it last year. I'll believe it when I see it. Until we see it, it's wishful thinking. It's not just wishful thinking. Wishful thinking to me means there's no basis for this to be true. There is basis for this to be true on this. Now, am I saying the Falcons are going to win the division in 2024? No, I'm not. I'm saying the expectation should be that the Falcons win the division, or at least win 10 games. And if someone else wins 12, so be it. Wins 10 games this year. That should be the expectation for this team coming in. If it's not, it's disappointing. It's a disappointing year with all of these moves that have been made. The 4 straight top 10 picks, the $100 million quarterback, the investment on the defense. It would be a disappointment for this team if they don't win at least 10 in 2024 with their schedule, their division, all of those things. That's where our expectations should be. Will they live up to those? We will see. We will see you on Wednesday. We're going to hop over to Mile High Huddle if you want to join the conversation. We're probably going to be talking quarterbacks. YouTube.com/Mile High Huddle and draft. And in that same article are the Super Bowl contenders for the Atlanta Falcons. On the flip side, Graziano asks, are the Denver Broncos going to have the number 1 overall pick in 2025? That's what we'll get into over there. Want to say thank you to Devron for coming in early with a super, Edward Brown, and Mark Schrader, keeping the lights on, keeping this forehead nice and shiny. We will see you on Wednesday at 9 in the morning for more Falcons talk. We've been going 90 minutes on Wednesdays, and we will do a mock draft. Thanks for being here, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Peace.